I want to call the Thursday, April 1st, 2021, Daviess County Fiscal Court meeting to order. We are all here in the courtroom. We're socially distanced. If you feel comfortable, then you can remove your mask. I would just ask that if you get up and move around, put the mask back on. If you would, pray with me. Heavenly Father, we thank you for all the gifts that we receive from you. And today, the start of the holy part of Easter season, we ask that everyone remember that Jesus Christ died on the cross, not just for me, not just for you, but for all mankind. And that we want to say how thankful we are. We ask that you watch over the men and women who serve our armed forces as well as our emergency responders. And I ask for wisdom and understanding for this court. Grant us humility in our everyday life and give us the courage to make right decisions for the Daviess County community. We ask all these things in your name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Once again, I want to welcome everyone to our April 1st, 2021 Daviess County Fiscal Court meeting. This is a real meeting. It's not an April Fool's meeting. We have a pretty short agenda. At the end of the agenda, we also have a hearing on an appeal regarding a zoning classification that occurred, I think, was it February? I think February. So what we're going to do is we'll go through the agenda. We will go to the end of the meeting where we talk about other business, public comments by Daviess County Fiscal Court. And then I'm going to dismiss all the staff that doesn't have anything to do with this. And the commissioners and I, along with the county attorney and the county engineer, will stay and hear the appeal. Jenny?
Yes, sir.
You ready?
Item 1, consideration for presentation. A, proclaim April 2021 as Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Month, as well as April 2nd, 2021 as National Arbor Day.
I was thinking that we were going to have someone here for the proclamation on child abuse and neglect. I thought that they were going to join us on Zoom. I don't see them. Whereas child abuse and neglect is a serious problem affecting all demographics, including children here in Daviess County, and whereas child abuse is one of our nation's most serious public health problems, with scientific studies documenting linking those abused and neglected with a wide range of medical, emotional, psychological, and behavioral disorders that often follow them into adulthood. And whereas children are our most valuable resources, they will shape our community's future. Whereas every child is entitled to be loved, cared for, nurtured, and safe, free from abuse. And whereas every adult who comes in contact with a child is responsible to protect that child's inalienable right to a safe and nurturing life. And whereas child abuse prevention programs succeed because of public-private partnerships, social services, schools, healthcare, law enforcement, and faith-based agencies, and with those they serve. And whereas prevention remains the best defense for our children and families, now therefore I, Daviess County Judge Executive Al Mattingly, proclaim April 2021 as Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Month in Daviess County, Kentucky, and urge all citizens to support and promote programs and activities that create strong and thriving children and families. And we will mail this to the appropriate person. The next proclamation. Whereas the Commonwealth is blessed with diverse forests extending from the hardwoods of the east to the cypress sloughs of the west, and whereas trees provide a sustainable and renewable resource that protects our air, water, soil, and wildlife, and whereas annually Kentucky spends an estimated $7.5 million managing and preserving the state's urban forests, And whereas trees enhance air quality, purify our water resources, protect our soil, supply a source of renewable energy, and provide valuable wildlife habitat. And whereas Kentucky forest products provide $13.2 billion in green industry and employment to over 52,000 people. And whereas healthy and diverse forests contribute to public health and well-being by providing places of recreation and relaxation. Now, therefore, I, Daviess County Judge Executive Al Mattingly, do hereby proclaim in Daviess County April 2nd, 2021 as Arbor Day, and urge all citizens to observe this day by planting a tree for the benefit of future generations and to beautify our state. And we will mail this to the appropriate person as well. All right, Jenny, you ready?
Item 2, consideration for approval, A, minutes of the March 18, 2021 Daviess County Fiscal Court meeting.
Motion approved. Second.
I have a motion second. Commissioners, you all had a copy of the minutes in your possession for some time. Any additions, deletions, or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
B, all claims for all departments.
Move to approve. Second.
I have a motion second. Again, Commissioners, you've all had a copy of the bills due and payable by Daviess County Fiscal Court in your possession for some time. Any questions of the treasurer? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
C, Kentucky Waste Tire Management 2021 Program Agreement.
Motion approved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Smith.
Yes. What we have is, I think it's about every 2 or 3 years, the state comes in and does a waste tire day. We have to be a partner in it. If we don't agree to partner it, they won't do it. This year has changed a little bit. The state, in the past, the Transportation Cabinet has agreed to host it at the highway garage. This year, that's no longer the case. We don't know if it's COVID-related or if it's permanent, but we have to find our own site, and we have to staff it ourselves, whereas in the past we haven't. But we do feel that this is a huge benefit to our community to be able to have a waste tire day, and we are making appropriate arrangements to do that. The tire day, assuming you all approve this agreement, will be in the middle of July. It'll be Friday through Saturday, July 15th, 16th, and 17th. They accept every type of tire from go-karts up to farm implements. The only thing they don't allow is off-road construction tires, tracks, solid tires, or field tires.
And David, in the past, and you may have said this when I was talking to Mark, in the past, we've held it at the state transportation garage there on Fairview Drive. That's not going to happen this year.
That will not happen. We are in negotiations with another site that we believe will still be convenient to the community. Not quite as convenient, but
probably easier in and easier out.
It should be easier in and easier out, but it's going to be further out in the community. But because of the amount of tires that come in and how we have to handle it, they have to use loaders to load up the trailers. It needs to be a site that can take quite a bit of wear. So a site like the Sports Center would not be available because it would damage their blacktop. So we have to find a site that can handle this. But we are very confident we've got a site available.
Questions, comments?
I have a question, Judge.
Yes, sir.
We will be advertising this for the public to
Yes, we will be advertising
maybe on the
extensively.
radio and newspaper because
Yes.
everybody doesn't get the newspaper.
And thankfully, in this case, this is being handled by the state, and they cover all costs, so there is an unlimited amount. If they'll just have to bring in more semi-trailers, so it's something that will go much smoother than some other operations do, that they can get overwhelmed by the consumer demand.
The Piranha thing,
Right.
Where we had shred day, and within a couple hours, they were all full and had to leave out, so it was an inconvenience. But this, as long as these folks show up on those 3 days, 2.5 days, they're there to take them.
They're there to take them.
Any other question or comment? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, David. Next item.
D, MOA with Daviess County Public Schools, special law enforcement agency in the city of Owensboro for access to the city-county 911 Operations Talk Group.
Motion approved. Second.
I have a motion and second. I don't know that anybody is here. Are you here to talk about this? No, I didn't think so. Commissioners, this is just a continuation of the school system, the Daviess County Public Schools setting up their own policing force, and it authorizes them to use the 911 facilities and for actually to use a policing channel. I think it's one of the channels the sheriff has. They will use all of they'll pay for everything, plus they will pay 1% of the cost of operating the 911 system. It's pretty simple. It's just the second part of we gave them access to what link was that we gave them access to, Claude? Law enforcement network. And yeah, and this just is the next step to complete that agreement. So any question or comment? If you have any question or comment, call Paul Nave tomorrow. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Folks, we got a set of wipes up there. If after you use the mic or before you use it, just wipe the mic off, and that way we make sure that we don't transmit any germs. Next item, Jenny.
E, Control and Quality Assurance and Construction Management Assistance Services Agreement for the 16.6 acre contained landfill expansion with Weaver Consultants Group.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion second. Commissioners, it seems like just yesterday, we completed the last contained sale at the landfill and the last CD&D sale, and we're already, I guess, have we started reworking the CD&D sale, and we're going to have to start or have already started on a new contained sale. So tell us about it, David.
Yes, sir. So you all are correct. We just last year finished the CD&D, the final expansion of it. About 4 or 5 years ago was when we finished the last 10-acre expansion of our contained landfill. We still have quite a bit of room to go on this. However, the manager out at the landfill plans on retiring within the next couple of years. And he has extensive experience. He's built every cell since the beginning out there in-house. Building it in-house saved us about $2 million. So he said that he would really feel comfortable. To feel most comfortable, he wanted to complete this before he left, so that the next person coming in would not have to deal with that within a couple of years. And so the next person who comes in may not have the construction experience to build it in-house. And so to save the county money, he wanted to go on and get this next 16 acres done, which would do the landfill for 15 years or more. There's no problem to getting it done a little bit earlier than we should. Our financial situation is enough that we can handle building it a little bit early. And as I said, in the long run, it benefits us. So because they have started, they're going to start doing some dirt work this year. It's a 2-year process. Because we are doing it in-house, we have to take our time to do it. They will start doing some subgrade work this year, and then building it back up. And then also we have already started stockpiling gravel because it takes an unbelievable amount of gravel to fill up 16 acres, as many feet that we put over the top of the liner. So this year we are having the contract for quality control work for this year, calendar year, and then it will go, we'll do another contract next year.
And the total cost of this contract?
This contract is just under 50 is their estimate. And next year, given what we did for the last time, I would say next year's will be about 100,000.
So how did we decide on Weaver Consultants?
They've who we've used for the last expansion. We used them the last time.
And we don't have to bid that?
No, it's a professional service.
Professional services?
Lost my train of thought there for a second. No dollars, no tax dollars, Daviess County tax dollars will be spent. This is
No, sir.
all from the enterprise zone. All the money comes out of the solid waste fund. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thanks, David.
F, contract with Axiom Architecture for Horse Fork Creek Park Restroom Design Services.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion second. Mark? Is it Mark? Oh, Jordan, you're going to take Mark just wanted to get up there and tell us about this, I'm sure. Go ahead, Jordan.
This contract is for Axiom to produce bid documents for the construction of the Horse Fork Creek Park restrooms. We only require service items 1 through 6 at a total cost of $8,435. Once we have those drawings, I'll bid the construction of the restrooms and bring those results back before the court. This is a budget expense. We have reviewed the contract and is in order, and I would recommend approval.
Question or comment? Mark, there was some question regarding whether or not the sewer from the new restroom to the connection at RWRA was going to be sufficient, and I think we verified that it is.
Yes.
Okay.
We verified that we can make that connection.
And Jordan, do you have any time limit how quickly, once these plans are turned around, how quick we can get a bid, and can we get this thing in service by the Memorial Day weekend?
I hope to bring the bid results back to you by the end of May.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
G, contract with Gardner Engineering and Consulting, PLLC, for the Gun Club Equipment Shelter Design.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion second. Jordan?
This contract is for Gardner Engineering Consulting to provide engineering services and designs required to satisfy municipal building codes for the construction of the equipment shelter at the Daviess County Gun Club. It is a budget expense. The contract is in order, and I would recommend approval.
Question or comment? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
H, declare the landfill's 1991 Scarab Compost Turner as surplus.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Jordan, you want to tell us all about this one?
Yes, sir. This is to declare surplus the old compost turner that we replaced with bid number 41-2020. Our new compost turner has arrived, giving us the option to sell the old unit. I would recommend approval.
The best I remember, by selling it ourselves, we are coming out very well.
That is correct.
Yes. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I, award the following bids. Number 6, 2021, 2 new tandem dump trucks. 7, 2021, surplus 1999 Scarab Compost Turner.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion second. Jordan, as usual, if you would fill us in on each one of these items, just pause at the end. I'll ask for question or comment, and then we'll move forward.
Yes, sir. Beginning with 06-2021, this bid is for the provision of 2 new tandem dump trucks for the road department. We received 6 bids ranging from a total amount of $251,698 to $319,950, and recommend award to the lowest and best evaluated bid of Sternberg International for the 2 2022 International HV 507 SFA units in the total amount of $251,698. There are no exceptions to our bid specifications, and I would recommend approval.
Commissioners, any question or comment? Are these going to be purchased in this fiscal year, or are we just ordering them and getting them ready for next?
The next.
For next. So we're going to place the order, but they won't be delivered until after July 1?
Yes, sir.
No questions, so next item, Jordan.
Moving to 7-2021, this bid is to sell the old compost turner replaced by bid number 41-2020. We received 2 bids ranging from $10,000 to $22,500 and recommend award to the highest and best evaluated bid of Amaret Coal Company Incorporated in the amount of $22,500. This bid exceeded our expected value of the unit. There are no exceptions, and I would recommend approval.
Questions, comments? The successful bidder will pick it up
Within 30 days.
within 30 days, okay. Any other question or comment? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
J, transfer Terry Bartlett to transfer station truck driver effective April 12, 2021.
Motion approved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Commissioners, this is just a transfer from one department to the other. David, is he coming from the landfill to the transfer station, has a CDL and all the other things? Okay. Any question or comment? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
K, hire Brett Baker as seasonal worker at Yellow Creek Park, effective upon successful completion of pre-employment screening.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Again, Commissioners, this is a yearly hire, part-time hire to work out at the park, Yellow Creek Park in this case. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
L, reappoint to the Greenwood Cemetery Advisory Committee Gary Adams and Wesley Acton, terms 4/19/2021 to 4/19/2024.
Motion approved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Both Gary and Wesley have done an excellent job as board members. They're very faithful. I want to thank them for the service in the past, and I know they'll do a good job going forward. Mike, you're the liaison out there. Do you have anything that you'd like to say?
Oh, they've done a great job. I'm glad they accepted the extension.
Okay. Any other question or comment? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
M, reappoint to the Parks Board Charlie Mackey and Bill Duncan, terms 4/1/2021 to 4/1/2025.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. This is a reappointment. Both Charlie and Bill have done good jobs, and I know they'll do a good job going forward. George, you're our liaison to the parks. Anything that you'd like to say?
No, just glad they're willing to serve. They do a good job.
Okay, if there are no other questions or comments, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
3, consideration for discussion, A, other business to be brought before the Daviess County Fiscal Court. I'm not aware of any.
Next item.
B, public comments.
This is a time in which we would normally invite the public to come to the podium. We do have some public here, so anyone that's here that wants to say anything other than about anything other than what's on the agenda, you're welcome to do so. I failed to notify the folks who are watching us on Zoom land that they should be thinking about questions at the beginning, so I will, when we get down to here in a little bit, I'm going to take just a brief recess while we clear the room of the staff that aren't involved. I'll entertain those comments. Also, if you had a question about anything that we did tonight on the agenda, you're welcome to type it in. Again, I guess I'm failing. It was April 1, and I was messed up over April Fool's Day. Next item, Jenny.
C, comments by Daviess Fiscal Court.
Commissioner Caslen.
Pass.
Commissioner Wathen.
I will pass also.
Commissioner Colbert.
Pass.
The gun club opened the first of this 1st of March. Already with all the bad weather that we did almost $16,000 worth of business, and we're not even into the prime shooting season. I'm looking forward to the start. Commissioner, I think they're starting the playground for all at Horse Fork Creek Park next week or the week after, mid-April.
Yes.
And I think 15th. It will be ready for use Memorial Day, which is pretty exciting, I think. I do know that we have had a list, all of you were submitted a list of roads in your districts to review. I don't know have they reviewed them yet, Mark, or should we take out a stick?
I got a response from all of them, so I'll bring the list up for official
Okay.
approval.
Jenny, I can't remember, the state is going to be here first meeting in May.
I believe that's correct.
I think, is that it, Mark? So they're going to bring in the discretionary funding and tell us what state roads
Correct.
that they're going to do. We will be having a work session on the budget last week of April,
Yes.
25th, 26th.
I was thinking 27th and 28th.
Well, if you're interested in that kind of stuff and won't be bored to death, then you can tune in, because I'm asking that Jordan, this is your notification that we live stream it so that people can see it. Other than that, I'm not sure that I have anything else to say. So With that, before we go any further, I'm going to invite the staff that has nothing to do with this to leave. Sherry, will you come up to this table?
Does David need to say to get any response, if anybody have any?
I'm going to ask him just before he leaves. I'm gonna ask him, yeah.
Can you hold it down?
If not, can Jordan field any?
I don't think.
You may want to come up a little bit early if you can. And do that and it will come on.
I mean, they can't talk anyway if they, well, I mean, they can't talk about the hearing, can they? David.
There was no comments. There were no comments.
Okay.
All right, Jenny?
Yes, sir. D, first reading of KOC 921.676, 2021, 2021, an ordinance amending a zoning classification set forth in the county zoning ordinance of February 5th, 2004.
This is the first reading of ordinance, so that we don't have any vote tonight. What we're going to do is hear evidence in a minute. Sherry, before we get started, we had several people who indicated that they were going to come. There were some people who were at the initial meeting, OMPC's meeting, and then there were some folks who filed an appeal. Can you kind of tell me who we have in the courtroom tonight? Who would have it? Joe Paul? Let's find out real quick.
I have the list of people who, we just call their names, just.
I can probably in my file.
Judge, I have a list of people I thought who were the movements, and, we can go down and we'll just.
Yeah,
call it as
okay,
a-
why don't
as
you
a
just
roll
kind
call.
of call a
And
roll
so
call.
we'll know
If
who-
you're here, raise your hand or holler out or throw something at the county attorney. He won't throw it back, I promise. Go ahead.
Melissa Evans from Owensboro Planning, Charlie Kamoff, attorney for the respondents, Chase Kelly, an applicant, James Coombs, an applicant, Jason Baker, Bryan Engineering, Kent Campbell, a movement, Eric Carper, a movement,
Carpers? They're here.
so Karen, Linda Wilkins, a movement, Clarence Wilkins, a movement, Kyle Best, movement, James Grease, Agnes Church, movement, Jeff Hamilton, movement, Ed Ray, movement, and John Burlew, who's an assistant county attorney.
So, we have one, I think, Ms. Church, you were at the original, or you were on the Zoom meeting, the best I remember. I don't remember if the Carpers were, you were not, but you were an appellate, right? Okay, so did you file an appeal too, Ms. Church? I can't remember.
No, I did.
Okay.
I called the planning commission about
That's-
it, but they told me that she had already retired.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. So folks, what we're here about tonight, and I'm going to kind of go over it, and then Claude will throw something at me if I get it wrong, or if you have any question about what I'm about to say. But according to, I guess it's KRS 100, Claude, which is the law that governs all zoning, both the OMPC board, what they can and can't do, and what we can do as the local government that you would appeal to, plus what the circuit court can do if you don't agree with the decision that this body would make. It certainly, you have the right to appeal it to the circuit court. We always write an ordinance in the affirmative, meaning that the OMPC's board recommended that that piece of property be rezoned, and that's the way the ordinance reads. Now, we have the option of either upholding that ordinance, meaning that the zoning will be good, or we can deny the zoning. So if we voted 4-0 to uphold, it would go forward. You would have the right to appeal it to circuit court. If we voted 3, it's got to be voted the majority of the court, meaning it's got to be 3-1. Can't be 3-0 because all the court has to be here, the best I remember.
Well, that would be sufficient to pass it since all of them are here. If they
Okay.
abstain, the
Yeah.
abstention would go with the majority of the votes, so it would be a 4-0 vote if someone
Okay.
abstained.
But if we voted 3-1 or 4-0 not to uphold it, then the other side would have a right to appeal it to circuit court. So that's kind of the way it goes. We actually have 3 choices when we hear a zoning appeal. We could just take the record, and believe you me, we've got the record and a lot of other information that was presented, as well as I think all the commissioners were given a video of the Zoom meeting. We were given a transcript of the meeting. We could just take the record and make a decision based on that.
Correct.
We could throw everything that the planning commission did out the window, and we could do our own finding of fact. We could hold our own evidentiary hearing, finding of fact, and make a decision. We have not done the first. I think, there's another. We could just not do anything, and it would become law.
Become law simply by.
Yeah, so, but we've never done that. We think that folks who appeal have a right to come before their elected officials and make their case. So the third way is for us to take the record and take the evidence, listen to your comment, and base our decision on whether we think that the Planning and Zoning Commission failed in their duty according to KRS 100, meaning where do you, and I'm going to ask and you will be asked, tell me where you think they made a mistake. What do you think that they didn't do that they should have done? But in doing so, we are only allowed to listen to evidence that was presented at the Planning Commission. So that meeting in May, the Zoom meeting, Ms. Church was on there. You're allowed to talk about what you talked about there or anything else that was presented. But other than that, you can't come in and say, well, something new showed up and we want that entered as evidence. I don't think we can accept that.
Correct. We
at
will
this
not
hearing.
accept anything that was not presented at the meeting on February 11th.
The Carpers, on the other hand, you weren't there, but it's obvious you think something was wrong. There was a defect in that decision, so you're going to come up and you're going to tell us where you think they made the mistake. What rule did they fail to follow, or was there overreach on their part? So it's I want everyone here in the courtroom to understand that we're pretty laid back. This is not while it is it's not a judicial court as such.
Correct.
So I'm not going to throw a gavel at you and throw you in jail for calling Commissioner Castlin a mean name. Yes.
Just don't throw it.
Oh, yeah, I'll just throw it at Charlie is what I'll do. I think you all were aware you could have been represented by counsel if you wanted to be. We will hear everything tonight. Tonight that's going to be the last time, and then when we come back at our next meeting, we will either vote this ordinance up or down. Claude?
I believe you covered it, Judge.
Claude, being the county attorney, will pretty much act as the adjudicator, the arbiter of what would or could be used and what may not be used. So with that, I think typically, Claude, I might, Melissa, are you prepared to come up and tell us a little bit about this and kind of like, you know, when you read into the record what OMPC staff recommended and all that? Then we will have the applicant come up and present, kind of like you did the other day. And these commissioners, you guys know how this goes. You ask questions. You can ask questions of Melissa. And then we would ask Ms. Church, since she was at the meeting, you could come up and talk about what you want to talk. And then the Carpenters, we will ask them as you know, appellants, we will ask you to come up and tell us what you think was done wrong.
Yep, and the only other thing, Judge, I would ask is there any time limits or any other conditions at this point?
The time limit will be determined when I throw this gavel at somebody.
All right. just-
Okay? Melissa, why don't you start us off? Charlie, don't worry, you're my first target.
When the blue light comes on.
All right.
Yep.
So at the Planning Commission meeting on February the 11th, there was quite a bit of discussion on this item, and you all have that from your recording of the Zoom meeting plus the transcript. So I'm going to read what our staff recommendation was and the conditions that were associated with that. And these are the conditions and the findings of fact that were adopted by the Planning Commission.
And what's the address of this property?
Oh, I'm sorry. The address is 2116 Daniels Lane.
I want to try to get that into the record so that, and the applicant was, and you'll go through all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, so the address is 2116 Daniels Lane. The request was a zoning change from R1A Single Family Residential to R3MF Multifamily Residential. It's 9.101 acres, and the proposed development of the property was for a multifamily residential use. The applicant is 5 Financial LLC, Chase Kelly, and James A. Coombs. So the planning staff recommended approval subject to the conditions and findings of fact that follow. Condition number 1, approval of a final development plan. Number 2, access to the subject property shall be in compliance with the Access Management Manual. Number 3, the development shall be oriented towards Hayden Road, Daniels Lane, and/or the interior of the development. No units shall be oriented towards the immediately adjoining residential properties to the north or west. Number 4, all lighting associated with the development shall be directed towards the development and away from all adjoining residential properties. And number 5, should the development reach 140 units, a traffic impact study shall be required, in which case the applicant shall obtain written approval from the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet as well as the city and county engineering offices accepting the traffic impact study. Such approval shall be obtained prior to approval of a final development plan. Findings of fact, number 1, the staff recommends approval because the proposal is in compliance with the community's adopted comprehensive plan. Number 2, the subject property is located in an urban residential plan area where urban mid-density residential uses are appropriate in limited locations. Number 3, the proposed multifamily residential use conforms to the criteria for urban residential development. Number 4, sanitary sewer systems are available to the subject property. And number 5, located along Daniels Lane and Hayden Road, the development will be major street oriented. So those were the conditions that were adopted by the Planning Commission along with the findings of fact.
Was this unanimous?
I know it was a vote of 7-2, I believe. There were 2, there was a motion initially made to postpone the item until a traffic impact study could be completed. That motion was denied, and then there was a motion to approve the item, and that motion carried 7-2.
Okay. Commissioner?
When you say they should be oriented toward the middle
Yes.
of the complex, so then the backs of the buildings will be facing Daniels Lane and Hayden Road, is that correct?
So the intent of that condition is that those properties that adjoin, that face Daniels Lane but are to the rear of this property, if you're standing on Hayden Road, or are on the west and the north of this property, that the buildings wouldn't face out to those properties. The buildings could face out to Daniels Lane and could face out to Hayden Road, but not to those other properties where they would face that way.
So only a portion, they're not all going to be turned in if you're driving down Daniels Lane, you won't see the back end of the
I have a
property.
map here I can show you.
That was my concern, is that I thought it would not be good if the back doors of the apartment was facing Daniels Lane. for
Yeah, so
example.
the intent of that condition was that they could face, it says that they should be oriented towards Hayden Road and Daniels Lane and/or the interior of the development. But they should not be oriented towards those properties that are surrounding it that front Hayden Road or Daniels Lane that are on the back side of this property.
Best I remember, Commissioner, as you face the property off of Hayden, as you look north, there's a single-family residence to the left,
Yes,
meaning they can't face that residence.
correct.
And on the north side of the property, on the other side of the creek, is that Yellow Creek?
Yes.
On the other side of Yellow Creek, there is a single-family resident, and you can't face them that way.
Correct.
But you could face them out toward Daniels Lane or Hayden Road. That's the way I understand it. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
I know many times when we hear these, there's, one of the conditions is there's got to be, this is mainly for commercial, where there's got to be screening. Is there, I didn't see that in this. Is that not a requirement for residential?
So there is not a screening element and buffer requirement between residential uses, and this is multifamily to single family, so there is no screening requirement around the perimeter of the property. However, there is screening requirements for any of their vehicular use areas that would adjoin the public right-of-way or those residential properties, so their parking lots have to be screened with a 3-foot tall continuous element and 1 tree every 40 feet. But there is not, a screening element any larger than that between residential uses.
Okay.
Could we require that?
Yes, you can, that's something that you can require additional screening above what the zoning ordinance would require.
As say, the 3-foot element, or I love what they call elements, a 3-foot fence or a 3-foot hedge, you could say it would be a 6-foot fence or a 6-foot hedge. Or you could say a tree every 30 feet, just something there to break it up. Now, that typically, Melissa, and I'm in a zoning request, that's not where you would place that. You would place it at the final development. When they bring the development plan to you, you have to have a hearing for that as well, right?
No, that's it.
Okay,
We would
so-
approve the development
so-
plan at the staff level, so any
Okay.
extended conditions above what the zoning ordinance would require need to
Needs
be placed at
right
this
here.
level.
Okay, okay.
And then the development plan will reflect whatever conditions are adopted with this rezoning, if
So-
it's approved.
And Commissioner, I don't want to steal your thunder, but the Commissioner Loth and I were talking about, we know that the access manual says the trigger point's 140 apartments. That may or may not require a traffic study. I don't think, Mark, it says you have to. It's at the discretion.
The 140,
Yes.
that's typically the threshold where we do
Okay.
require them.
Okay, so we do require it. It's not at the discretion of the state or the county engineer or the city engineer. So
Well, I
when they
think
hit 140, that's,
Historically, that's what we've used.
okay.
Yes.
And that is a condition.
And that is a condition here. And actually, if I know we talked about, we know how developers are and their attorneys, that they might come in and try to slip another building in there and get that extra 16 apartments, but knowing that Charlie wouldn't allow that.
But it's stipulated in here.
It stipulates here that if it does, then it's going to require that, so, okay. Commissioners, any other questions of Melissa?
I'm not sure that Melissa would be the person to answer it. We can defer to somebody else if she's not. But I know when I watched the meeting, there was much discussion about, and I had the transcripts in front of me, much discussion about, and you mentioned a vote to postpone, and that was a 2-7 vote, I believe, exactly opposite of this approval. And it was for a traffic study is what the ones that made that other motion. But even if a traffic study were done, that wouldn't necessarily preclude this development from happening. Am I right?
No, what a traffic study would tell us is that if the roadways were substantial enough and the improvements were there to support this development. And if they weren't, then it would give the recommendations of what improvements would need to be installed and upgrading of those roads to support this type of development.
Commissioner, it's kind of like if you think about when the hospital was out there, when they developed that site, a good portion of Daniels Lane was upgraded, hospital paid to upgrade it. And I think, Mark, did they upgrade Pleasant Valley as well, or just Daniels Lane?
Actually, 603
Okay.
to the bridge was done by the Highway Department as part of their project.
Okay.
So Pleasant Valley is considered their main.
But that's, the traffic study said, you're gonna have traffic coming that way, you need to do X, Y, and Z, and that was part of it.
Correct.
So, okay. Any other questions or comments? While I have Melissa up here, Charlie, does your client have any questions of Melissa? Ms. Church or the Carpers, do you have any questions that you would like to ask Melissa? Okay. Any, Melissa? Yes.
I had one more.
Okay.
With regard to the entry point and exit point, I know ultimately that will be decided when the site development plan is approved. But at this point, is it anticipated that there will be entry points and exit points both on Daniels as well as on Pleasant Valley, Hayden? Okay.
Yes, I believe they intend to have one entrance on each road. They have to meet the spacing standards for each road, which pushes them both to their farthest.
To corners,
to
yeah. The
corners
best
of
I
the
remember
property.
on Hayden Road from center line of Daniels to the center line of the entrance was like 400 and change. And on Daniels Lane from center line of Hayden Road to the center line of the entrance, it's right at
50,
500. Or was it 4? I was thinking it was right at 500. So it's at the very far ends to get it away from that intersection.
Sure,
Yep.
okay. Thank
Anything
you.
else?
That's it, thank you.
Anything else? Melissa, have a seat. Mr. Kamoff, I would have you and your client, if you want to make your presentation.
I do, Your Honor.
You do know he's charging you by the word.
Okay. As explained, I represent Chase Kelly, and we want to thank you for your time, also the judge and the commissioners. The main issue in this case is a traffic impact study. The threshold that was required for multifamily is 140 units before a traffic impact study would be required. And the development that we have on Daniels Lane, the question arises, is it below or above 140? Our unit there is 128. This is a threshold, this is critical. This threshold was set by your local people, the city, the county, and the state agencies. So it's our position here that why would you discredit and change anything of the threshold and kind of put a slap in the face with the county or the city or one of the engineers? Now, this was specifically brought out by two of the members of the PNC board. The first one was Manuel Ball. Now, Manuel Ball, the critical point of Manuel, we got the property rezoned for him up on Daniels Lane about 7 years ago. There's, I'm sure, way over 100 houses there. So he's familiar with that area. And here's what he said. He pointed out it would be a bad precedent to require a traffic impact study where the city, county, and state do not require it in the threshold. And Michael Edge, and these are longtime members, these are just not new members of the board. Michael Edge sounded the same issue, and he said, what good would it do to define what goes beyond what the state, the county, and city regulations abide by? And I put it this way. if you guys are gonna build a parking lot across the street, and all it takes is 20 loads of asphalt, why would you put 40 loads of asphalt on it? The same analogy, I think, takes place if you're gonna build a lake. You build a lake, one dam's required, you wouldn't put 2 dams. I mean, this just makes sense. And here is what Brian Howard said concerning that. As a staff, we're going to rely on the information we get from the county engineer and the state transportation cabinet engineer as far as whether we require a traffic impact study. So I think, in other words, it's been established, and what takes place is this. We're not afraid of the traffic impact study because from our experience and from Chase's experience, it won't change anything. But what we are afraid of is this. We're talking about, for the county, a $15 million project. You continue that for 3 or 4 or 5 months. It requires us to pay at least $15,000 for a traffic impact study. I've had many of them. And the problem that you have with that is to get most of those guys that do that are from Tennessee or out of state. Wouldn't you rely more on your local people, the county engineer, the city engineer, to tell you what to do about a threshold and whether things have safety? That would be my position on that. But in other words, we might prolong a project, $15 million project, and I don't think that we've ever done this for anybody, required any local person to do it. So why would you require somebody from out of state to do something that you don't require local people to do? And you know, the vote was 7-2. And those guys have been along there for a long time that made those motions. And the question I have is why and the evidence at the hearing centered around that traffic impact study, but nobody ever questioned it. Nobody ever said it was wrong. That really was basically the issue. And one of the other developers just kind of mentioned it, and it flew off a little bit. So we're here to answer any question. Chase is here. He's a developer that we have there. We're fortunate to have somebody to come in Daviess County and put up $15 million. All the action is taking place in that area. The report from the staff was very complex. It laid it all out why this was a good area to be developed. And in other words, think of this. You're talking about putting the planning staff in a difficult position. We have a threshold. The planning staff abides by it. Now, we send it back over, or whatever you do, and say, we're not going to abide by what the county engineer says. That's their policy. That's what they do. So I think it would be a bad decision to change anything that we have based on the evidence. Now, what was the expert testimony? In other words, the testimony was from Brian Howard, the OMPC, from Jason Baker. He was supposed to be here. He had to go someplace. And also Chase. Those were the only expert witnesses that testified. The objectors had no testimony whatsoever from any expert witnesses that the traffic study would be necessary. We're here to answer any questions. Do you have any questions of me? Chase is probably the man you'd want to talk to, but I'm here to answer anything that you have.
Thank you. It's obvious you didn't take the subtle hint when I laid this up here and sat down. Melissa got it. She giggled.
Please, I'm having trouble here. Maybe I don't want to hear
it. Chase, Mr. Kelly, do you have anything that you'd like to add to what your attorney has just said?
I don't think there's really anything to add other than just to reiterate the fact that we're not
concerned about the results of a traffic study. From my past experience and from other developments, an apartment complex operates similar to a neighborhood, so it's not going to be a massive influx through, at one period of time. The traffic's going to spread out throughout the day, so we don't see much impact there. And then really what we're trying to avoid is just wasting time and money. It's going to take 2 to 3 months to get the traffic study completed. Cost $15,000, and all we're going to get in return is the results that we already know, that the project fits the area, and no further action is needed.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions? Thanks, Mr. Kelly. Mark, I think one of the things Mr. Kelly alluded to, actually, the traffic impact study requirements, if this were a single-family development, it would actually, the trigger point would be fewer houses, correct?
Single-family residential, I believe, is 90.
90. So what they're saying is there's fewer trips generated by the apartment complex than at 128 than there would be at 90 single-family residences. I'm assuming that's what you could take
That's
from it.
reasonable.
The comparison would actually be the 140 and the 90, since those are the two thresholds.
You could say 90 is equal to 140. Right. It's the same. Mark, when they do a traffic impact study, do they look, and we've had these discussions about flooding, floodways and all those kinds of things, a little bitty project that's done in the middle of the old High River floodplain has very little or negligible effect. But if you looked at the cumulative effect, when they do a traffic impact study, do they look at a cumulative effect of what's been going on and what might be projected, or they just look at that project in a compartment?
They would take into account any and all development that they are aware of in the area, and use that data plus the data based on this development.
The last traffic impact study that I'm aware of was done, is that the Jago development on Daniels Lane? Is that
Brooks?
Is that the one?
Brookfield
Yeah.
on Daniels Lane. That's
That triggered-
obviously there's been several on Fairview Drive
Right.
Extension and Gateway and
Right.
603, but that the one Brookfield on Daniels Lane was done in 2015, I believe.
I assume that when the school was put there, there was a traffic impact study required.
Meadowlands or the new?
Meadowlands.
I'm not aware. That was before I was here.
Okay, and I'm sure all the development at Gateway, I know we got involved, or you were involved in several of those things, so there were traffic impact studies required there, but simply because that was mainly commercial. If a Starbucks was gonna go in this place, I'm sure we would probably have to have a traffic impact study. Is the threshold different for commercial versus residential?
Yes, there's different thresholds for multiple different
And I
scenarios.
think that's what Melissa alluded to, the threshold for screening is different for commercial versus residential.
Did the middle school, the proposed middle school, did they have to do a traffic study?
Yes, sir.
Is it done?
Yes, sir. It was done 2 years ago.
And so it's been quite a few studies done in that area.
There's been several studies in the last 12, 24 months in this area.
And I suspect, as Mr. Kamoff said, 54 is the fastest growing corridor we have in Davis County. So, all right, if we have no questions, anybody else have any questions of the engineer? Then we will have our first person come up. And Ms. Church, I think you were there, so I'm going to ask you to come up. Charlie or Mr. Kelly, did you wipe that mic off? We probably ought to say, I'm not worried about Mr. Kelly, but an attorney up there may leave some things. And Charlie, you asked if if we were gonna build a parking lot, and it took 20 loads of asphalt, why would we use 40? Only because we got a consulting engineer. I know, that went over your head, so. All right.
I figured I shouldn't use one of those examples pertaining to you.
Yeah, that's correct.
Well,
Ms. Church, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Yes, we are very concerned about the traffic. I know not just myself, but some other people that spoke at the Planning Commission meeting. I've talked to several of my neighbors who are concerned as well. I am aware, that the 128 units doesn't meet the threshold. I understand that. But where it's at, it's on the corner of Daniels Lane and Hayden Road. I live directly across Hayden Road from it, so I'm right across from where it's gonna
Okay.
be. So I drive this pretty much every day to go to work, et cetera. The other part of Hayden Road where you're referencing that traffic studies have been done before, where Gateway Commons is and all that, that of course is 4-lane. The road was expanded. Where the middle school's going, it's 4-lane. This is a much narrower stretch of Hayden Road. It's 2-lane at this part. So I feel like the same traffic study that's applicable to the other area is not applicable to this particular corner. And it's the middle school, like if you come out of where I am, I'm in Fox Chase subdivision. If you come out and you turn left, you're right there, like I said, on that corner. It's really narrow. It gets a little bit wider as you go in front of Meadowlands. And then, of course, you hit the 4-lane part, or you can turn right and head toward the bypass. So like I said, it's all wider there. So like I said, it can support more traffic. It is extremely narrow. I don't know if you're familiar with that section of the road, and that's our main concern. And because of Gateway Commons and the middle school that's coming and Meadowlands, as people come out of those apartments, they're gonna be driving on that narrow stretch. And that's what our concern is. There's already a lot of traffic coming out in the mornings. There's a tremendous amount of traffic in the afternoons when school's getting out. And, with it being a narrow 2-lane road, you're gonna be stuck. I was coming home the other day, right as Meadowlands was getting out, the car lane was backed up into the road, or the car line, backed up into the road where people were picking up kids. And fortunately, I was heading the other way, because like I said, I was going home, but somebody trying to get somewhere would have been stuck as it was. The apartments are only gonna make it worse with that traffic.
Could I stop you just a second? Mark,
Sure.
would you contact the school system and tell them that apparently they're causing a traffic impact? We had that happen at, what's the one on 140, 405? 405, they were actually backing up and the school redirected traffic. That's not supposed to happen.
Oh, okay.
So I wasn't kidding. I just have a conversation with the Daviess County school system and ask that they rework the traffic. You shouldn't have to put up with that.
Yeah. And,
Go ahead.
As far as the precedent, I know Mr. Kamoff was arguing about the 140 units has been established, but it's my understanding that that's been established as where you're required to do a traffic study. It's my understanding, and I'm definitely not an expert here, this is the first rezoning I've been through, but it's my understanding, based on what some of the planning commissioners were saying, that it can be optional at a lower level, that they can require it if they see a need. So the 140, like I said, is a threshold where it's required. It doesn't mean you cannot require it at a lower level if you see the need. And I feel like there is a need, and that's my thoughts.
You live there, I don't,
I do.
but I'm out and about. As a matter of fact, I traveled it again today when I was out at the hospital for a meeting. Did you by chance look up the crash history?
I did not.
Okay. Okay, we'll just leave it at that. I would think that if there was a history of a lot of crashes there, that we would be informed by the sheriff's department. that there would be a lot of, the engineer, I guarantee you that Mr. Brasher would hear about it, and I'm not aware of there being a lot of crashes there now. Doesn't mean that the absence of crash history means that it's easy to travel, where there's, not a congestion at certain times of the day. My Lord, go out on Highway 54. I tried to get from the east side of Highway 54 to the west, and it took me 30 minutes to get a bad time of day, though. I mean, it was, bad time. So I hear what you say about the precedent. No, there is the fact that 140 is the threshold that says above 140 and above, you have to have it, but that doesn't mean you can't have it below 140. But I guess to answer that, and this is just my way of thinking, you got to have a rule somewhere so that when a developer is going to develop a subdivision, he's got to know so he can plan it. And once those rules are in place, or those thresholds are in place, they can always be changed, and a group of citizens could come before what's that committee that you're on, Mark, that looks at those kinds of things? Of course, this is
TAC,
the Transportation Advisory Committee, but the time to do that would be before you needed it changed and not during the change. I always have this thing, and I have been in private business, and as long as I'm going by the rules, don't change them in the middle. You change them at the beginning, or after I've done, change them then, but I've got to have that flexibility to know exactly what the cost is. So that wasn't the only, was there a question about the schooling? I remember somebody asked a question about.
Yes, I think that was Jeff Hamilton.
Yeah, where they were going to go to school. You assume they'll go there, or they'll go to middle school, but wherever these people are coming from, that's a question for, I guess, the Daviess County Public Schools. If that school gets overcrowded, they're going to rework the districts.
Yeah, I think they have had
Yeah,
overcrowding
the
issues
middle
in that
school, the middle school, in my opinion, is a non-issue, because people who were traveling that direction to get over on 405 will now travel that direction to get up in the mess. So anything else that you want to talk about or tell us?
No, I can't think of anything else.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If during this you have a question, just raise your hand. We'll bring it
All
back up and let you question. All right, so we have the only folks who cared enough to show up who appealed this. We'll ask you to come up, and what we would like is, you're certainly welcome to talk about anything that's in the record, but when you appeal, you're saying that you think somebody made a mistake somewhere. So share with us what you think the Planning Commission did wrong.
We live right on Daniels Lane, across from the rezone.
You're on Daniels Lane. There's what, 10 houses right there before you get to Yellow Creek, or maybe 7 or 8?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
I'm
Okay.
concerned, I'm right in the
Okay.
middle.
Okay.
Anyway, our concern is the flood zone. We weren't in the flood zone in '97. We are now. And I would say 70% of this land is in the flood zone. So we're concerned with all the parking lots, 128 units in 9 acres. That is our concern,
Okay. So what I hear you say is that the staff didn't take into account the floodway and the floodplain. I think there's a little bit of floodway there, isn't there, Mark? Right along the creek. Yeah, so you don't think that they erred in looking at that?
Looked at, yes.
Okay.
Because when we bought in '97, we were not in a flood zone. We are now, so I have a substandard crawl space. I can't do anything about it, because I can't build to a plan when the plan wasn't there.
Okay. Do you want me to, now please don't throw, here, you come get the gavel so you can throw it at me. And I'm going to answer, I'm going to make a statement that I guarantee you the county engineer would make. In '97, you were in the flood plain in the flood, or you were in a flood zone. It's just that they have redone the floodplain maps, and they moved some people in, and they have moved some people out. As a matter of fact, within the next 18 months, there is going to be a new map, and it's going to show those flood zones and the
So
flood
what are we gonna do
levels.
about this neighborhood?
I'm sorry?
This neighborhood is in the flood zone,
Okay,
so.
let me mark this down. You believe that they erred in looking at the flooding.
Yes.
Okay, anything else?
Nothing, I guess, other than what the lady had already,
This church.
Ms.
Okay.
Church had already brought to the attention as far as the
So-
traffic, which she's already brought to your attention.
I'm going to assume that the other concern you have is that regardless of the threshold, they should have required a traffic study.
128 houses on 9 acres is a little different than a subdivision, in my opinion.
Okay, anything else?
That just about covers it.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Have a seat. If you have a question or a comment would,
Chase would be the best to answer a couple of those questions.
I think my engineer will be the best to answer those questions. Mark? When you review the development plan, what do you look at?
One of the primary things that we'll look at is drainage, which
Okay.
we do have retention requirements due to the increase in impervious area. But we also have local regulations in regards to filling in the floodplain. We have one-to-one mitigation. So for every dump truck load of dirt that they put in the floodplain, they will have to take out of the floodplain to mitigate it.
Okay.
Obviously, they'll have to get Division of Water and potentially Corps of Engineer permits that also review their plans and will review.
Okay, so
the
back up a
effects.
minute. It won't just be the county engineer that will look at this. It will be Corps of Engineers and the Division of Water.
Division of Water for sure, potentially the Corps.
Are they allowed to build in the floodway?
That's a question for the Division of Water and Corps, but to my understanding, no.
Okay, and Melissa, isn't that your understanding? Notwithstanding, and I love that word they used in the General Assembly this year to really make me mad. Notwithstanding whatever their regulations are, our regulations do not allow building in the floodway. Floodway, Mark, do you recall how much of that property is in the floodway?
I've got it.
I just had it up.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, a quarter.
Quarter of the property in the floodway?
25% probably.
25?
I mean, just guessing it.
Yeah, okay, come on, Mr. Kelly, it's obvious my engineer is sitting over there not ready to answer the questions I was gonna ask him.
In regards to the floodway and the flood zone, we've obviously had the engineer look at that. And we are not building in the floodway, and we will have to get permitting, to basically access the floodway, to build up the flood zone, get an elevation certificate, and that will allow us to be out of any flood issues.
That's the buildings out of flooding. Of course, our neighbors are concerned about their homes.
Right.
To make sure that none of the water that comes off of the the parking lots and the buildings, the impervious surfaces, they're required to have retention basins, Mark?
Yes, they will.
Do you have one or two, or you know how many's on that property?
I don't know for sure. I'd have to ask Jason, our engineer, on that. But the way the development is designed is that it would be built on approximately 7 acres, and then the floodway would remain, but it would be all green grass essentially, so you could, it's functional from a playground standpoint or something like that, but we're aware of that flood.
Out in Phoenix, Arizona, Tucson, they had lots of retention basins that flooded once or twice a year, and the rest of the time they used them as playgrounds and soccer fields. So,
Yeah, I mean, we would, whether it's a playground or something, or a dog park or something else, I mean, we would be sure to keep safety at the highest level. But I walked the property just, and this is just me walking the property, but not an official assessment. But, I mean, there was no water there, dry as a bone.
Thank you. Melissa, how soon after the zoning, and maybe Mr. Kelly, how soon after the zoning do you anticipate getting the final or the development plan?
Well, that would be a question for Mr. Kelly.
Okay,
That
Mr.
involves,
Kelly.
his engineering company preparing that and it being distributed to all of the public utilities and
Right.
agencies that have to sign off on that before it comes to our office for review, so.
Any idea? I guess what I'm saying is when would you, if we found in favor of the zoning, if it wasn't appealed, if there was nothing else, no other impediment, are you?
We would get started on it immediately.
Okay.
So it would take 8 to 10 weeks. And we do have.
So you would get really prime construction season, middle of May, that's what you're trying to hit?
No, it'll probably take longer than that. We're April here.
Okay.
Probably July, August,
Okay.
somewhere in that ballpark, because we do have to get over the hurdle with the flood designation.
Okay.
It's been done many times before. It's just a process that you have to go through.
Division of water can be slow. Yes, sir.
I have actually a couple of questions for Melissa, if I may. And I think it might help clarify his concern. If they build, number one, they can't build in a floodway, is that correct?
You can build in the floodway, but it takes, it depends on what you're building. So buildings like this likely couldn't be built in the floodway. And there's a conditional use permit process to do something like that. And you have to get permits from the Division of Water and the Army Corps of Engineers. And, there's a lot of things involved with that these types of buildings probably wouldn't be permitted to be built in the floodway.
Okay, and the only way you can, my understanding is the only way you can build in a floodplain is if you actually bring in enough dirt to raise it up so that it's out of the floodplain, is that correct?
Yes, you have to, new construction has to be a foot above the base flood elevation.
But then also, if any of water's displaced, like, so that it won't be displaced to their property, there has to be arrangements made with the Department of Water to make sure that doesn't happen, is that correct?
Yes, and that would all be addressed in the development plan review when Mark reviewed that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good point. We in this community, the one thing that we don't, and you're not allowed to do is take water from your property, run it home to another property. Now, the concern would be with impervious surfaces, does it dump excess water and cause Yellow Creek to flood more often? But in this case, we require retention basins to mitigate that and release the water more slowly. Okay. Commissioners, any other comment or question? Ms. Church, any question or comment? Mr. and Ms. Carper, any questions or comment? Counselor, and who did? Oh, okay, come up. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes, sir.
I did have a question about the residential on all four sides and putting I call it commercial business in the middle of four residential. I'm guessing it's sided by residential on all four sides.
Now say that again.
You're putting what I call a commercial business in the middle of a residential
Oh,
area.
okay, so you're equating the apartments,
Yes,
which
it's a
are
business. It's a
multifamily residential, it would be the zoning, yeah.
Family residential all the way around it. Is that?
That is not an issue,
Because you
that's,
don't normally see, 54 has their there's no residential around it. On the other side is Lake Forest.
yeah.
A lot of them. you don't
Apartments,
see.
duplexes, and single-family houses are all classified as residential.
Okay.
So, I mean, Melissa, that's appropriate to group them. Lots of places you have multi-use developments where you will have duplexes, you will have apartments, and you will have I guess the one I'm thinking of is the Jago development over there off of Sherm Road right now, where they've got duplexes, they got some single-family houses, they've got some condos, and they're gonna have, I think they got some multi-level apartments that are planned for it. So anything that's residential, whether it be single-family or multi-family, is why we would think of it as a commercial business, which is renting out apartments. It's not, it's residential.
Okay.
Okay. I was thinking for a minute that you were saying that they were gonna sneak a coffee shop in the middle of all those apartments. Yes, sir, Mr. Kelly.
Yeah, if I could, aren't we getting on a tangent here a little bit in this new evidence?
No, we're about done. Till you stepped up, we were gonna shut her
You're gonna
down.
Finish it out, okay. Because I don't believe any of that was discussed at the planning commission. But
Well, it's certainly his question about multifamily or residential is a valid question. So,
Sure. Well, and I can say too that, if we're gonna come here and spend $15 million, it's gonna be
Sure.
a high-quality build, and, because we want it to do well, and I think that there's a misconception sometimes with apartments, 20, 30 years ago, they may have been viewed a little bit differently, but in today's world, they're almost as nice as, country clubs, so, just wanted to reiterate that.
okay. Thank you. And with that, commissioners, unless you have any other questions, one more time, I don't believe I see any hands up out in the audience. Claude, have we given everyone a ample opportunity and an equal
Judge,
chance?
Everyone who's appeared has made a statement or appeared before the court, so each one of them have been afforded opportunity to be heard.
So, again, just so you'll know what we'll do, our next meeting is the 15th of April. The courtroom will not be open. We made special arrangements so we could have, because we thought we were gonna have 15 people, didn't we, Sherry? And we just weren't gonna be able to use Zoom, and I know Ms. Cherry, that was a terrible Zoom meeting, Melissa, by the way. I couldn't hear anything, couldn't read anything, and couldn't hear people half the time. But we thought it would be better to do it in person, so that we could see your faces and you would know that we're very interested in what you had to say. So, if there is no other business to be brought before Daviess County Fiscal Court without objection, we're adjourned.